Hi everyone, it's Niamh here and welcome to my art journaling channel. Today we're going to be creating a layout called Creativity in Art. And it's inspired by Inky Quill and Little Raven Ink, which have both got fantastic YouTube channels, so please check them out and subscribe to them. So the day I was creating this, I was feeling very uninspired and I just wanted to do something. I wanted to get inky and painty and not to put too much thought to what I was doing. And I'd been watching in a previous day a video done by Inky Quill, by Adele on Inky Quill, where she used the Jane Davenport tissue papers to create this beautiful background and then put masks over the top of it. So I thought I'd have a go at doing something similar because I just wanted to have a play basically. I didn't have a goal in mind. Why I just chose to use a black page to do this, I don't know, because I know as soon as you put collage medium onto the tissue papers, they go translucent. That's the whole point. They're supposed to meld into the background. And as you can see on the black, it's not working as well as it should do. But I wasn't too worried about it because I figured that the tissue paper would add extra texture to my page, and I could always do something over the top of it if it didn't work out, which you'll see when I have the quote at the end. So I'm just drying it off in between. The collage medium I'm using dries matte, so you can see there's a bit of a shine to it, but most of it's dried matte in the background, which makes it easier for the paint to sort of grab to the tooth of the surface. So I'm going in now with my Dilutions paints and just plopping paint sort of in the gaps and over different pieces. I'm going to be using quite a lot of the different paints in all the bright colours, and that's one thing I love about Dilution paints is they've just got magnificently bright, happy colours, and they always cheer me up. I don't know, again, you know, if you were doing this to get the brightest colour possible, you possibly wouldn't do it on the black background, but they seem to be standing up really well. Even though there's a kind of translucent paint, or they can be, obviously you can see on this they're keeping their colour fairly similar. The only slight difference is with the lime and the yellow zest. Because the yellow zest has got quite a green base to it, they kind of look similar. So there's a bit of a pause here because in the background I'm playing with my iPad, putting another video up to watch. I find when I do, particularly when I do pages like this, when I don't have a plan in mind, I like to have something playing in the background, whether it's a TV series that I've watched lots and lots in the past, or if it's crafty videos. I need to have something playing in the background that distracts my mind from what I'm doing. If I don't have anything playing, I start to overthink what I'm doing. So, it was actually, I watched a video with Dilutions where she was talking about her process, and it really clarified it for me. She was basically saying you're using two different parts of your brain. You're using one part of your brain to create, and you're using another part of your brain to concentrate on what's being said or what's talking. So basically you've got both sides of your brain busy and you don't have time for that interplay and talking between each other and overthinking. And it's a process that I find personally helps me a lot when I'm doing pages in my art journal. It just relaxes my mind. I don't have that constant chatter in the background sort of over analysing what you're doing, or that looks wrong, or you've done this, or what do you need to do to fix that. So that's how I work. At the moment I'm going through my pile of stamps because now I've painted the background, and you can see I've mostly got rid of all the tissue paper in the background. It's just adding that texture over the top. And now I'm just going in with some new stamps that I bought from, these ones are from Carabelle Studio, which is a French company, and it's just a mark making set of stamps. And I'm just using First Fine ink, which is a permanent ink, so it'll go over the acrylic paint and be permanent. And I'm adding a lot of stamping over the top of this to add in some texture and detail again. Now there would be nothing to stop me going in with a pen to put the marks in, but that's why I love stamping, because you've got those ready-made marks and it makes something like this happen really, really quickly. So I'm just waiting for my page or my ink to dry slightly, and then I'm going to go in with some other stamps, and these stamps are from Darkroom Door, and again it's sort of a grungy mark making stamp. Now there's lots of long stamps like this one that sort of look like stitching almost, so as I was doing this I thought, you know, putting it in between the different pieces of colour kind of looks like it's stitched together, all the colours stitched together. And while it looks really busy, you're starting to see bits form together, a bit like a patchwork. And funnily enough, I haven't actually darkened any of those colours with inks over the top, but it actually looks like I've gone in with a sponge and sort of darkened some of the edges, and that just comes from not being too particular with my painting, and some of that black from the back sort of looking like it's aged the edges. It's sort of grungified or vintaged the edges, you know, all the stuff that Tim Holtz type kind of does. So once my now I'm going in and inking the edges. And the reason I did that was because I could see that sort of effect happening beside the paint effects, or beside the paint swatches in the middle. Now I absolutely adore using VersaFine as an ink, but it is oil based, which isn't really an issue, but it does take a little while to dry, which is why you see me using my heat gun all the time. If you use something like the archival ink, that will almost dry instantly, and you don't need to worry about that sort of drying process. But with the VersaFine, you may find if you don't allow it to dry long enough, it will smudge slightly. Now the great thing about working on acrylic paints and working with permanent ink is if you make a mistake, like I did with this quote, is you can wipe it off with a baby wipe. So what I've done with this creative quote over the top, I just wanted something in my journal to remind me to, you know, mistakes are okay. And I was making a few as I was making this page, so it kind of really spoke to me. So I'm using a white, thicker Sharpie marker just to sort of write out the quote. I'm not being very particular with my handwriting, and what I'm doing to kind of make it look a little bit more put together is once I've written out my quote, going back with either the thicker pen on the larger words or a thinner pen to sort of flare out the tails and thicken up some of the lines so it looks like I've spent a little bit more time doing beautiful font as I'm writing, instead of just writing it with my own handwriting and then fixing it up afterwards. Now I have actually learnt from my mistakes in the past, and you'll notice I'm using some paper towel underneath my hand so I'm not smudging what I'm doing. Again, the Sharpie markers are permanent markers. They do dry permanent, but because you're sort of working over the top of them, it does help just to have something there to protect your hand so you're not smudging it too much. So the quote itself is, creativity is allowing yourself to make mistakes, art is knowing which mistakes to keep. And it's a mantra that I find is really important to what I do. I make mistakes all the time, and I suppose not necessarily calling myself an artist, but it was being confident enough to keep those mistakes or to work with those mistakes or to fix those mistakes, that you're not locked into doing anything. At the end of the day, it's paint and paper, and if you don't like it, you can paint over it, or you can tear it up, or you can tear it out, or you can tear it into pieces and rearrange it in a different way. You cannot make a mistake, and that's something I tell my students in my class an awful lot when we're doing art. There's no mistakes in art. When they come up and sort of say, I need a new piece of paper, my line went a bit wonky. The thing I love about being creative is that it's all about problem solving. So being creative is about, you know, when you make a mistake, being creative with how you solve the problem, how you fix it. while I was doing this, I wanted to put something on the bottom of the page. It's just looking a little bit lost to me. And I've been involved with uh, Courtney Diaz on her Patreon stream, which is Little Raven Ink. And she had these beautiful little monstery figures that she had peeking up from the edge of the page. And I thought it would be perfect for what I was doing on this page. I had a little bit of a space down the bottom. I wanted something interesting and quirky, and so I decided to use inspiration from her and draw my own little peeking monster to come up from the bottom of the page. So this is just a piece of scrapbook paper, not scrapbook paper, sorry, watercolour paper that I had, scrap, and I'm just going in with mermaid markers now to colour my image using some of the colours that I had in the background. I'm using a Stabilo oil pencil to draw it out, and you can see as soon as the mermaid marker touches it, it activates the pencil because it's a water soluble pencil and gives you sort of those inky lines and a bit of shading where you need it. I love that effect. If you weren't so keen on it, you could use just a normal pencil or a permanent black marker and put the mermaid marker over the top. If you don't have access to mermaid markers, they're basically liquid ink in a water brush, so you could use sort of some of the Dilutions inks just with your paintbrush, or you could use watercolors quite effectively to do this. I just quite like the convenience of having something that's in a pen that I can just draw straight on. And you'll notice I'm blotting off with paper towel as I go, just to dry it off a little bit and take off some of the excess ink. The mermaid markers are very, very intense in their colour, so be aware of that. At some stage I think I put on another pink and it's very, very bright, and it spreads almost instantaneously, obviously because it's water based. So you will have that sort of explosion of ink watercolour effect happening on your page. So just going in and doing the finishing touches, putting in the eyes and activating that up with my water brush. And again, if you've never used the Stabilo oil pencil, I have to admit I am a very recent convert to it. I've only got mine sort of at the start of the year, and it was love at first sight. I've just put that line down to begin with, and it was just so buttery and creamy to put down on the page, and you just got an instant black line, which was fantastic to begin with. And then you add water to it, it's like you've drawn with ink. So it's just an amazing, amazing pencil to have in your kit. So now all I'm doing is going back with my Sharpie pen and putting in some white dots, just adding some little bits of detail to it. And the very pale blue I put in the background sort of faded into insignificance, so I'm going back in with quite a dark turquoise colour and dropping some of the ink. And to be honest, I wish I hadn't done that. It didn't work quite the way I wanted it to, but it added to the charm of the piece. So now what I'm doing, I think I didn't quite like it because it sort of spread and it had sort of a starburst effect rather than the contained circles. So I'm going back with my Signo ball pen, a white Signo ball pen, and just adding some white lines to the outside of it, going back and darkening up those circles that I've drawn. And the white didn't quite cut it, so I've put some black back over it again as well around the circles. You can see the difference there. But that again is what I was talking about before, and that problem solving. If it doesn't work, try something else. I tried the white pencil, didn't work. Tried the Signo, wasn't quite happy with it, so now I've gone back with something else. The white pencil or piece of chalk that you saw me use is a contour stick, I think they're called. They're like a compressed chalk that you get from art stores. So now I'm going in just darkening up the edges with my Stabilo oil pencil just to hide the cut lines, and I decided I want a hat for my little monster, so I'm using the Dilutions crown, and again going in with a mermaid marker to colour it. And you saw again I used the VersaFine pad, and I just hit it with a heat gun to dry. Not so necessary on watercolor paper because it's so absorbent, it just goes straight into the paper, but drying it on acrylic paint is really, really important because it is plasticky. It's not going to absorb into the fibre of the paper, so you do need to heat it, otherwise it will smudge somewhat. I'm just cutting out my crown, working out where I'm going to stick it. I don't think I mentioned before, because I was talking, because that's what I do on these apparently. Around the quote itself, I went back with a Stabilo oil pencil as well and put some drop shadows in, just with the pencil. So that just helps pop it out from the page a little bit. So here I am sticking my monster down, which I really love how it's worked out, and in the close-up you'll sort of see how that's worked. Going behind the little pink dots on the crown with my white, my white Sharpie, again just to add a bit of detail to it, because two of those pink circles were on the pink, so it sort of got lost, and adding a little bit more detail. So I was quite happy with this page at this stage, but I had some extra time and I wanted to do a little bit more to it. So I got out my liquid chalk markers, which are in neon colours, which are again my new favourite tool to use. They're really, really fat and chunky. They've got a chiseled nib, so you can do this sort of mark making with it and get these lovely rectangular shapes. And I'm just going around with a few different colours and making three lots of pattern. So I've got 3 spots of pink, I've got 3 spots of the yellow, and now I'm going to have 3 spots of the green going through. Just making the different patterns, filling in the filling in the background, just to add some extra interest. And because I'd kind of lost that really intense bright colour that I had in the background, I wanted to have some bright colours just pop off the page as the last piece. And that's basically the page. It was a lot of fun to create. It was just making a mess and trying to fix mistakes, and I love the fact that I've got this quote now in my book to remind myself, 1, of the process of doing this, and 2, that making mistakes in art is important because you know which ones to keep and how to change it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a go at doing something similar, and I will see you next time on the videos. Bye!